Good afternoon and welcome back to our review of the Punchestown meeting, which finished a couple of days ago, and I thought I'd look back and talk through some of the action, the horses that overperformed, underperformed, some of the best performances, and horses that need to go away and come back better horses next year. And we're going to start off on the Tuesday in the Champion Novice Hurdle, I should say, where Mighty Potter definitely surprised a few people at 20-1. Sir Gerhard got overturned. He finished third in the end, even 100-1 shot beat him. It was very poor from him, but starting off with the winner, it was a brilliant training performance by Gordon Elliot. He did run in the Supreme Novice Hurdle, made a very bad mistake, was probably a little bit out of his depth. It came a little bit early in his career. He was pulled up going down the back, but he's had some time off since then, and he came back a very much improved horse, I should say, and Jack Kennedy probably did win it with the ride as well. It was a very good ride from him. Shut the door on Paul Townend, who didn't give Sir Gerhard the best rides of all time. It's not the first time he's somewhat let Willie Mullins down with a highly touted horse. He has proved Willie Mullins right in being his stable jockey many of times, but this was a very poor ride from him. He got boxed in, Jack Kennedy, with a mid-race move on Mighty Potter, shut the door, there was no way out, and then from there Mighty Potter got first run. Sir Gerhard was probably going to get beat anyway, but I don't think the jockey helped him there. But going forward, it's going to be interesting to see what Sir Gerhard does, because his best bit of form does come in the Ballymore over 2 miles 5 furlongs, but he's definitely not short of speed. It wasn't the speed test over 2 miles that got him beat today, he just underperformed. And it's interesting, he's been beaten twice in his career, and they've both come at this meeting. Remember last year in the bumper he was beaten by Kilcut when he finished third, and again another disappointing performance this time round. He might just be a horse that does well with a bit of freshness in him in the early runs of the season, and his form may tail off towards the end of the season. That might be something Willie Mullins will look at when campaigning him next season. He might start him off a little bit later in the season and just go for the 2 or 3 runs, maybe the 3 runs, one before Cheltenham, and then finishing off the season here, because he definitely does not perform at this meeting. He's been pretty poor on both occasions, especially considering he sets such a high standard. So it'll be interesting to see where he'll be next season, hurdles or over fences as well. But I expect to see a much better Sir Gerhard next time out than what we saw in the Champion Novice Hurdle. Moving on to the Champion Novice Chase, and it was another favourite that underperformed. Bob Olinger was well beaten in the end. In fact, he was pulled up where Capodanno won this for Willie Mullins and JP McManus. Now, this horse had been knocking on the door quite a few times. He'd been running very well, but just not up to winning Grade 1s on his last couple of starts, and he put in a pretty impressive performance, to be honest. I think some of the horses in behind did underperform, but he won it well in the end. On Bob Olinger, I did have a few reservations about Bob Olinger coming here, because he was so poor at Cheltenham. Even though if you look at the form, he won the race, he was going to get smashed by Galopon the Champs, and I think the way he went up the running, you could see there was something wrong, and afterwards it was found out the horse pulled a muscle. And I'm no vet at all, but I just thought maybe if you did pull a muscle, you might have a little bit more time off the track. I'm sure he was 100% sound going into the race. I don't think Henry de Bromhead would run the horse if he's not, but I did have a little bit of a concern going into the race, and I did actually take him on in the race, and I was right to, because he jumped right. He wasn't the most fluent at times and was pulled up before 3 out by Rachel Blackmore, which was definitely the right thing to do, because the horse had no chance. So for this horse, where does the future hold? Well, I think he needs a full MOT over the summer and some time off the track, try and unearth a problem, because there's definitely something wrong with the horse. Of course, he did pull that muscle last time at Cheltenham, but I just think there might be something else with this horse, because if you look at his hurdles form from last season, he was up there looking like he was going to be a monster of a horse, but his last few runs have been somewhat overwhelming. If I was Henry de Bromhead, would I put him back over hurdles? I probably would, to be honest. I don't think he's been the most fluent over fences. He jumps a fence okay, but he just can make a few mistakes, and he's not the most fluent. I think he loses ground at most fences, and at this top level you need to be jumping well to be winning the Grade 1, so maybe back over hurdles, stepped up to 3 miles might be an idea, but who knows. Anyway, moving on to the Wednesday at Punchestown, it was all about Allaho in the Gold Cup. He blew them apart from the front. It was a very nice ride from Paul Townend, actually. It made up for the slightly poor one on Sagahad, but to be honest, anyone could have won on Allaho. He won this race so easily, and if you look at the calibre of horses in behind as well, there was some very good horses in there. King George winners, Gold Cup winners, all of them were winning Grade 1s in their heyday, but Allaho just blew them apart. There was the question mark over the 3 mile trip. Well, he got pretty much an uncontested lead out in front, allowed to set his own fractions, and no other horses could really get into it. I think it is worth giving a mention to Album Photo, who ran absolutely huge at 20-1, managed to finish third, although well beaten by Allaho. It was very nice to see him running well, even at the age of 10. I think, well, who knows where he'll be next season if he does stay in training, but he's been a brilliant horse and returned a little bit of place money at 21 for myself, so he's a very good horse, winning 2 Gold Cups as well. He's probably a little bit underrated by a lot of people in racing, but a very good horse nevertheless. Now moving on to the Stayers Hurdle. Now for me, you look at the form, you see that Classical Dream wins it, and you expect it to be a similar performance to last year. It wasn't the most impressive performance by Classical Dream. I don't think this form will amount to very much. Ashdale Bobbin Gentleman's Game wasn't that far back at all in third. Cider Burley probably underperformed, and Paisley Park hit the flat spot at the wrong time, and he was finishing fast enough at the end, but it was a little bit underwhelming from him as well. I don't think Classical Dream is going to be an absolute certainty over 3 miles in the future. I think he just beat some pretty poor or underperforming horses there, but nevertheless it is a Grade 1 for Connections, and this horse is quite a special one, to be fair. Winning the Supreme over 2 miles, then beating horses over 3 miles as well, is a pretty good horse for Connections, and he'll probably pick up another Grade 1 next season if he stays hurdling, although I don't think he's one of the greats we've had over 3 miles over the hurdles. Moving back to 2 miles over hurdles, the speed test in the Champion Hurdle, and Honeysuckle made it 16 out of 16, or 17 out of 17 if you include the point-to-point, won by 3 lengths in the end from Echoes in Lane, and it wasn't the most convincing performance of all time. Turning in, I actually thought she was going to get beat. Rachel Blackmore was urging her forward, and there wasn't an immediate response, but she did enough, like she always does at the end of the day, to extend the unbeaten run. Now, if you look at some of the horses that got close to her, Echoes in Lane, Dorasso, it's not the strongest piece of form in the world, but I think as long as Honeysuckle keeps on winning, then she's going to go down as one of the greats. Sanois, who is a horse that I very much like, he ran pretty well. He went out in front. It was a change of tactics. Usually he's held up to settle. He just made all this time. Got a little bit tired late home, but he settled much better, and I think going forward, Sanois off the front, get him to settle nicely, that could be a key. And at the end of the day, he was only about 4 or 5 lengths away from Honeysuckle, so it was a pretty good performance from this horse, who has a rating of 156, which if he just drops a couple of pounds, I think he'd be a very good thing in a handicap, but we'll see how he's campaigned next season. Now we're going to finish off on the Saturday in the 4-year-old race, and Vauban is quickly becoming one of my favourite horses in training, not least because he landed a nice 16-1 anti-post for me at Cheltenham, but this horse is an absolute monster, and he's pretty impressive considering he's only a 4-year-old. He's already won the 3 Grade 1s, and he won by 4 lengths this time, and he could have won by a lot further. Paul Townend just stalked Phil Daw the full way, upside by the last, and went on to win pretty impressively in the end, and could have won with a lot more. He won with plenty in hand, to be fair. Phil Daw is a pretty good horse as well. He's kind of a bit annoying for Connections of Phil Daw. If Vauban wasn't around, this horse would have 3 Grade 1s by now. He's finished second to Vauban twice, and I think Phil Daw is definitely one he'll probably go chasing next year, steps up in trip, and I think he'd definitely be one to keep an eye on. As for Vauban, I think there was a little bit of talk whether he would have a flat campaign this summer. I think I'd just turn him out in the field, give him a nice break for the summer, and campaigning for the champion hurdle next year, coming back as a 5-year-old. I think that Vauban, Constitution Hill could give Honeysuckle a proper test in the champion hurdle. I mean, Vauban has been very impressive. Constitution Hill in the Supreme. There's some pretty good opponents going to be for Honeysuckle, who hasn't... There always is the debate of has she beaten much? Well, she hasn't had to beat much so far this season. She hasn't beaten much this season, in fairness. But if she can remain unbeaten next season, if she goes and beats Vauban and Constitution Hill, if that clash ever does take place, then I think she will be going down as one of the, if not the great mares of the game. So that rounds up this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and do let me know if you like this style of review away from the horse racing tips. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.